There are 4,218 PS2 games, and I'm beating every one of them. I've got to own the game because I'm playing everything on the original hardware, but I've beefed it up with a RetroTink 5X, some component cables, and more to come soon. Can I do this before I die of old age? I hope so.
Rogue Galaxy was developed by Level 5 and released in January of 2007. This would be Level 5's last game for the PS2, and it would be their biggest yet. First released in Japan, a director's cut was made and ported to the US 2 years later. Developers would once again use a technique called tonal rendering, where the characters were cel-shaded and the backdrop was detailed and more realistic, something you see in their other games like Dark Cloud and Dragon Quest VIII. Sitting at a Metacritic score of 83 out of 100, can I beat this stylized RPG? Rogue Galaxy is the totally unique story of an orphan slowly finding out that he's actually the chosen one who's here to save, well, the world, or at least in this case, the galaxy. Never before done in an RPG. It's a really interesting excuse me? What's that? Hundreds of other times? This is not even close to the first one? Well, fuck! Okay, so maybe it's not a totally unique story, but the journey there is probably the most important part. I play as Jaster, the aforementioned orphan, who finds out that one day he is the chosen one. He was adopted by the priest of the church here named Raoul and has been being raised here on this planet, and it just so happens to be war-torn. So there's a nation that is holding the whole planet hostage, and they just kind of do what they need to do to live, but kind of barely at this point. Next, we get this cute scene with two characters. The short, squat one is named Simon, and the tall robot is Steve. And they're here looking for a dude named Desert Claw. And they're kind of wondering why he would be on this war-torn planet that was also just all desert. So they keep searching for him. Jaster's adopted dad says, "The guys who are holding us slaves are just not that bad, I promise you." Something happens outside while they're talking though, and when Jaster comes to, he sees that there's a large monster with wings, and I'm not even sure what the heck it is, but that thing is flying around town, landing on buildings, and probably killing people. And then, oddly enough, we get surrounded by enemies. It seems like this is not supposed to be happening. Why are there people inside, why are there monsters inside this village? Who freaking knows, man? But as we begin this fight, a mysterious stranger with a cool-ass sword drops in. And I mean, the only other person we learned about was Desert Claw. So Desert Claw temporarily teams up with us to help us clear up all the monsters. And when we do this, we get a lot of tutorials about a bunch of the different things in the game, because at this point we're let go into the city. Now, you can walk around all the different areas of this game with what they say is no loading. And that's true. The loading is obviously done in small hallways or in specific parts of the game, so it feels like there isn't any loading. Although if you ever teleport to a save point or just anywhere else, there will be a little bit of loading. But still, for a PS2 game that looks so nice and runs so well, there's not really a lot of loading as you move between areas in the map you're in, which is cool, because the maps are pretty big. Combat in this game is very interesting. You get a big area to fight these monsters in, and they are random battles, so you will walk around and suddenly you'll be in a battle. Your characters will spread out from where you are on the actual map, which is kind of cool, so you're always fighting directly where you're standing. Feels pretty good. Then you'll fight several enemies, and all those enemies have different elements or attributes to them, and obviously each of them are different with different moves. You have 3 people total in your party, and you can control any one of them. You can also just control Jaster as the main character and press square to bring up the team members' commands, where you can actually choose their abilities for them without having to control them directly. Sometimes in combat, your allies will actually ask you for things to do. They're like, hey, I suggest you use this, and if you press the button associated, here you can see L1, max heal, that guy is going to max heal my character, or at least that's who you think he's going to do. There's only one person who needs to be healed, so pressing that will have him immediately cast a healing spell. So the game actually gives you these auto-generated suggestions that are actually pretty helpful most of the time. The game obviously knows what enemies are weak to and what your characters need in the way of healing, like status ailments or whatever. So that's a really cool feature, is being able to control your teammates directly, being able to kind of control them indirectly, and then another indirect way by them suggesting to you what should be done next. And you can accept or just ignore it, and the fight will continue. You have 2 attacks, very much like its predecessor, Dark Cloud 2 and Dark Cloud. You have a ranged weapon and you have your sword. Now, everyone has 2 weapons. They don't necessarily have to be ranged and melee. Regardless of this, you have 2 ways to attack. On top of attacking, you can also use your skills or you can use items. And everyone above their health bar at the very bottom of the screen there, where it says Jaster, you can see a blue bar that is sectioned off. Every time you use attacks of any sort, items or skills, then that will go down. This is your action bar, and it will be at the very top. It will start all the way charged, and as it goes down, you then will have to wait. So there's 2 ways to get your action bar to go back up to take more commands. By just waiting for it to fill up, which is most likely what you'll do, or blocking an attack by an enemy successfully. If you block one, your bar will fill immediately, which is a good way to maybe try instead of having your bar fill up quicker. That's pretty cool. Once you do that, you can then go back to attacking or using items or skills, and everything takes a little bit of the bar differently. Some items take 1 little pip of the bar. Some skills take every single pip all the way. You use all of your action points. So then you got to kind of recognize, okay, so this skill will take everything away. Is it worth doing right now? It all matters on how your action bar affects what you're doing and how you decide to fight your battles. Oddly enough, your secondary weapon, in this case his gun, has its own bar associated with it. Now, this bar is independent of the action bar at the bottom of the screen. You can see at the top there, my gun with a red bar that gradients to white. It will go down, and it only can be recharged during a single battle so many times. So if you use it too much, it will then not be able to be used in that specific battle. It will be able to be used later on in other battles, but each battle only has so many ways for it to recharge. So it will go all the way to the bottom and it will recharge slowly like your action bar, and you can use it again a few times, and once it's gone, it's gone. Then you have to wait for another battle. So obviously some of the longer boss fights, you want to be kind of careful, although I'll be honest with you, I never really ran into that problem before. I don't think I even knew that until I was making the video here, that it actually could break in a battle. Of course, just like any other RPG, the experience screen, the skills, and the acquired items from the end of battle, the skills for your weapons are really important. You want to be leveling them up. You just have to equip them and kill things, and you'll get experience in those weapons. And that will become more something that happens later. This is very early on, and you won't see very much about it because we're still learning. So I'll talk about the skills for the weapons later on. While we learn the mechanics of the game, Desert Claw eventually leaves us, giving us his 7-star sword, the Desert Seeker, which is my sword that I pretty much used for the rest of the game, and that will be explained as we go on. Regardless of this, Desert Claw thinks that we can handle this on our own, and even gives us a way to like track things so that we can track them in the menu, which is fine, I guess. We run into Simon and Steve, who were looking for Desert Claw, and when they see me, they notice the sword I have on my back, which is the trademark of Desert Claw, so they immediately think I'm Desert Claw. Jaster just decides not to correct them, because they say that they want Desert Claw to come with them on their ship. And guess what Jaster's wanted all of his life? To get off of this goddamn planet and go explore the universe. So of course, would you say anything? Adding a third member to the party makes battles a lot easier. Let me tell you what, having a full party is always the best, man. You just have the best chances to win. This early part of the game has this weird difficulty spike in combat, and I think the reason is because you only have single target stuff. You're working on fighting one monster at a time, you don't have really many abilities unlocked, and we're slowly learning about what your ability trees do and how to use them. After we convince these two to go with us to kill this thing, they actually don't want to. They want to leave. They want to take us off the planet and just say screw everyone else. We get to fight this thing, and it's kind of crazy looking. The enemy design in this game is really nice. We have to break the thing's bracelets around its legs, and then we have to use a new weapon. See, breaking the bracelets around its legs helps it knock it down, but we can't really do anything else to it. It doesn't have a weak point where we can reach it. So Simon and Steve give us a new gun that will shoot these platforms, and you can jump on the platforms to get up to the boss's back, which is really neat. In the middle of battle, you can switch your gun out for the other gun, which this gun right here is the one that's helping us deal damage to him. It's a super cool mechanic, and do you want to hear something really surprising? I never use the gun again. I just don't. I don't know when I should use it because I beat the game. I didn't need it. I don't know. I'm not really sure what other bosses I'd use this for. Is there a super hidden boss that really needs you to use this gun? I mean, it's cool. I like this, and we use other guns like this in the future for boss mechanics that I can actually use outside of the boss mechanics, or at least I use more than the time there, but this is the only obvious time I need to use this gun, and it's cool. I just wish I could use it more. One of the core mechanics of this game is that the universe is full of hunters, and they have this leaderboard where you gain points by hunting monsters, a certain amount of monsters, and you can increase your hunter rank. It is not at all necessary to do because it's cool and you get a lot of cool items, but it's not necessary. In fact, I get really far up on the list. I think I got to rank like 6, and at that point I realized all I was going to be doing was grinding a lot to get further, and it didn't really yield anything. I mean, it's cool, and I think the first place gives you something neat, but whatever. Before we leave and get on the ship, we actually have a little exposition. We understand a little bit more about Jaster as he remembers a night in the desert where Raoul comes to talk to him about leaving the planet and his hopes and dreams and stuff, and it's really cool. I like it. The character development in this game is actually pretty decent, especially for such a large RPG. Next, we get a very cool cutscene. Honestly, it's a really cool cutscene where he's kind of lollygagging and thinking about all the cool things that are about to happen. And instead of focusing on the now, where, he needs to get on the goddamn ship, he starts to get chased by a bunch of monsters. Like, seriously, look at the size of this thing. It's so big, and the ship he's going to is just gonna get destroyed. So I don't know what's going on here, but he took way too long. He lives on this planet. Does he not know of the incredibly ridiculous large worms? Although, I'll have to be honest with you, he's jumping in, flying through the air, and chopping this thing up like it's nothing. So, I'm unsure. Am I supposed to be scared? Is he actually in danger? It seems like he chopped that thing up. Regardless of this, the cutscene is still super cool, and I'm really glad that they took the time to do this. Oh shit, what a cool scene. This girl came over and picked us up on this flying device. She did not want us to die. We don't know why yet, but she totally thinks we're worth saving, so she comes down here amid a gaggle of these things to save us. Welcome to the Dorgenark, our ship for the rest of the game. Now, we don't get a lot of control over it right now, but it's a pretty sweet ship that'll take us anywhere we want, and we'll be using it a lot throughout the game. This is kind of our base of operations. Although we don't necessarily need to use it as a base of operations, the whole idea is that this ship needs to travel between all the different planets, and so this is like your big loading screen, right? Like loading a large planet to then have no loading screens. But it's still pretty cool. I like the ship. It's a really good idea, and it's kind of neat, even though it doesn't make any sense to fly this ship out into space. It's still sweet. Now, we don't get to meet the captain yet, but we do get to meet the first mate, who is a cat. Obviously, everyone in this universe there's tons of different kinds of beings and people. There's a sentient robot, this squat dude we're not really sure of yet, a cat. I mean, nothing's off the table. Jaster is finally experiencing the universe, and the first thing he wants to experience? Boobies. That's right, he sees the woman who saved him earlier, Kasala, standing at the deck of the ship, and he goes over to talk with her and flounders around a little bit. He's not sure. He's an orphan. He doesn't know shit. Anyway, we get attacked by these cosmic stingrays. No fucking way, man. Actually, it ends up being really bad because we get smacked a bunch by these things, and then somehow our ship goes down. I mean, we're very close to a planet, so I suppose, we're being pulled in, but how did we get over to the planet? Were we just happen to be by it? I guess we happen to be close enough to it. It just seems very convenient. We crash land on the jungle planet Jerica, which has a race of people that don't really use technology. In fact, this planet is not something a lot of people like to visit too often because it's just, tribes of people who don't use technology. There's no big cities, and there's also a strange thing happening we start to slowly find out about as we're here. Okay, so before we actually get off of the ship, we meet Zegrum, who we don't know much about, but he's a bounty hunter who goes with us and is going to watch over us. He seems like he's pretty powerful, but we don't know much else about him other than he's voiced by Steve Bloom. Next, we take a look at the Revelation flowchart. This is the bread and butter of how you get all your abilities and buffs for all of the characters. Every single character has their own little Revelation flowchart with its own abilities, and some of them are unique, some of them are not, like attack up or defense up, those things, but then their abilities are all unique to them. The way to actually progress the board is to get specific materials that you place into the board. You'll get these materials all over the place, and all the characters share most of them, although there are some differences, like Steve the robot taking computer parts that, Jaster wouldn't take. I mean, he doesn't need them, he's not a robot. So as you collect these items, they will show up with a blue-hued like square around them, which means that you have the item for this specific thing. And after you hover over it, it will tell you this is AP efficiency. This is Fire Sword level 2. You don't actually know the specifics of the skill until you buy it, which is a little annoying, but the Revelation flowcharts aren't that big, and they follow a pretty close progression. Like, everyone gets several of the things available every time you progress a little bit in the story, because each of them has items that, as you branch out, are more rare or don't become available until you go to a new planet. So you'll spend time going through everyone's Revelation flowchart, looking at the abilities and trying to figure out what you need. The silhouettes do tell you a little bit about what you need, so let's say you're missing it and you don't have the blue square around it, and it says, oh, it's a vial-shaped mark. You need to find a vial. Well, there's only like 1 or 2 of them in the whole game that is a vial-shaped mark, so if you've ever seen it, you'll remember, and you'll just kind of need to look up online maybe where to go to get it, because there's places for all this stuff. There's places you can buy them, you get these materials from enemies, from chests, just from exploring, and it's really important though. Honestly, fighting enemies a lot in this game, like grinding, is not just about getting levels, but some enemies drop these materials, and these materials are absolutely necessary, and we'll go over why that is shortly, because I actually figure out how the game functions in a minute. But this Revelation flowchart is super important, and it's not hard to understand. You just pick the materials, put them where they go. If you don't have them, you don't have them. The only way for us to actually get out of Jerica is to repair the ship a bit, and honestly, we don't really have the fuel, but there is a fire fruit down here we can use to get us off the planet to actually take us where we're going to go. So, we have to look around for this fire fruit. These planets and areas are kind of big, and at the behest of taking 3 or 4 hours to explain literally everything we do, I'll do more of an overview of our quest on each of the places that I'm going to be going. And this very first one, Jerica here, is probably decently long for the first area because it's still getting us used to how the game functions. As of now, we've been doing mostly tutorials and kind of very scripted stuff in Rosa, but now we kind of get our own, we have to find our own bearings and figure out what the game wants. At first, I struggle a little bit with the combat that's here. The enemies have become kind of tough. Like, right away, they want you to just do your best. Like, go fight these enemies. A lot of them have little abilities or quirks that you don't quite know about yet, so good luck with it. And they do. Some of the enemies need you to jump on top of them to open up their weak spot. Otherwise, you can't deal damage. Some of the enemies are fast. Some of them hit you with elemental stuff that stuns you in place or hurts you. And the worst thing of all is finding a treasure chest that happens to be a mimic. There are tons of mimics in this game, and the mimics are brutal. Good luck fighting them. The first 10 mimics you fight are always, not only are they a surprise, but they're a bad surprise. You know you're going to struggle because it's early on in the game and you don't quite have the skills yet unlocked for your characters to deal that big single target damage. We meet this cute little guy with these goggles, and he is part of the tribe that does not use new technology. However, you can see already on his face, he's got new technology, and he just gave us a power glove, one we can use to move very heavy rocks. He says, I don't like the fact that the tribe does not like technology or use it. He said they all want to stay in this Stone Age type place, and I want to use the technology. So this guy actually helps us, and then we don't really ever see him again, but he loves technology. So now we have to go around the map trying to find out where we need to go with this power glove. When you are moving around maps, you'll have things marked as objectives that you need to go through, and most of the time, those objectives are finding and using an item. This is usually a small block of progress. You can see up here a star on my map. This is where I need to use the power glove. It doesn't tell you need to use the power glove there. What happens is when you click on those, they will give you a hint. It seems like you need to use something that helps you become stronger here. And then it will open up your inventory and you can choose any item you want. This makes it interesting because the game does not specifically tell you what you need, although most of the time you're going to find that you need a specific item, like a very special item. It's not something that just kind of happens. But once you get over to it, you click the button on it, you open up your menu, and you find what you need. In this case, it's the power gloves. During our travels, we actually meet this little kid who has this cute little bug catching device. Apparently, there is a bug catching minigame where you catch bugs and I think have them fight. This is actually something I never did. I kind of forgot about it, and I just never went to do it. A lot of people said I should, but I worked on the other side. I actually worked on some of the other mini games or things in the game, and instead of this, which, I mean, it's totally worth it. It seems kind of cool. I just never did it myself. You can like set these traps, catch bugs, come back to places you've been, and try to get good bugs that can fight for you or do whatever it is the minigame needs you to do with the bugs. We meet a brand new character here who becomes a party member soon, and her name is Lillica, and she reminds me very much of my wife because she's headstrong, and that's it. We help her and her sister by fighting this crazy frog-looking thing. He's not too difficult. It mostly just comes down to me blasting him in the face and healing over and over and over. It's not a hard fight. And then directly after this, along with our new party member Lillica, we meet this toad. His name is Toady. He's very cute. He is actually a very important mechanic in this game, which is fusing weapons together to make new weapons. You feed him 2 weapons that are max leveled up, which is where I earlier said that there's skills for your weapons that you can get. You can get those points by fighting and using those weapons in combat. You can fuse 2 max level weapons together to make a stronger one. As long as they have a decent amount of attack on them, and then the gap between them is close, you know, like 40 attack and 45 attack would work, but you know, a 40 attack and a 10 attack probably would not meld together. This is a super important part of the game too. Like, some of the weapons you just cannot get the way that you get through synthesis. And even my character's weapon that I got from Desert Claw, that one, it's interesting because that one is actually one of the strongest weapons in the game if you just continuously upgrade it throughout the game. So they give you a super weapon. I mean, and I'm not kidding you when I say it is a super weapon. As long as you carry it through most of the game and synthesize, it becomes extremely overpowered. But it's kind of neat because, you know, the game gives you these weapons with attack power that match what you need to upgrade at specific points as you go through the game. So you're never too overpowered, at least at the beginning. Once you get about halfway through the game, if you've been keeping it with you, then yeah, you'll be super fucking overpowered. So the whole story here is that these people really do refuse to use technology or question anything. They have this weird religion around this thing called the Star God or something, and they say that the Star God lives here in the jungle and needs sacrifices. But they've been doing it for a long, long time, man, like maybe hundreds of years, and no one's ever questioned whether this thing is actually a Star God and not just a big-ass scary monster, which I think it's just a big-ass scary monster, guys. But they're gonna sacrifice Lillica's sister. And so, of course, the party goes, we're not gonna let that happen, except for Zegrum, the bounty hunter, who, like, just doesn't give a fuck about anything. He doesn't want to do this. But we're gonna help figure out what this Star God is and stop them from sacrificing Lillica's sister. Alright, here is where I figure out combat. I unlock Kasala's ability that is an area of effect. It hits all of the enemies on screen in battle. This is super important because for some reason in this game, they have made the area of effect skills very strong. This Star Charm does almost full damage to every enemy, and if it doesn't kill them, they have very little left. Now, you can just use it again the second her bar comes up. So these guys who lost half health, I could just as easily have used the skill again to kill them right away. I actually spend quite a large amount of time here grinding by using her ability to hit everyone on the screen. It kills almost everyone in one hit, and if it doesn't, just use it again or switch to someone and shoot them with a gun and they'll die because they're probably pretty close to dying. But that's what this game turns into, is an ability game. The normal attacks of your characters aren't necessarily super strong. Yes, even with Jaster's ultra weapon that I have that will eventually become the strongest weapon in the game, it's really good, but it's nothing compared to all of the abilities you have. This game is an ability game. In fact, as the game goes on, I will show you what ends up happening throughout the rest of the game. Once I figure this out, I make a very good party of characters who can take everything on for the entire game, and we figure it out. And that's actually one of the small problems I have with combat, is that it does turn into random encounters being like 10 seconds long. The loading of the random encounter, me using my AoE ability, and the encounter ending takes about 10 seconds. Every encounter that is not a boss or a mini boss is finished in 10 seconds because now I have these area of effect skills. The second you go for them, you are going to win because now every battle can be finished very quickly. Lillica is really not sure she wants to do this, but she knows it's kind of necessary. She wants to figure out what this Star God is, and here it is. And holy shit, who the fuck thought this thing was a Star God? I mean, really? They didn't think it was a crazy looking monster? Because that's what it is, dude. It's a crazy looking monster. They're sacrificing people to this thing called the Individer? That sucks. As we explore the areas around here before we fight the boss, we get this cool freeze gun that actually makes it possible to kill this thing. So you have to wait for it to recharge every time you use it, and then you fire it and it freezes this dude so that we can deal damage. It's another neat mechanic, and honestly, it's not as powerful as I'd want it to be still. Yes, you can freeze lots of enemies with it. However, it's a once and done, and then you have to wait for it to come back. As you see at the top left, it's recharging after one shot, and the game happened to auto-lock onto some random little enemy, so I missed the boss. So it's a little bit of a gamble. It never really paid off too many times. I did find myself using it when there were maybe 3 or 4 big enemies and I could freeze one and just take them out of the battle. But like I said, the game is all about abilities. So once I got really strong abilities, the gun became useless. I just started every battle blowing everyone up. And even boss battles, I think there's another 1 or 2 boss battles I can use the freeze ray in. It's such a cool idea, it just doesn't get used enough. We kill the thing. Take Lillica and her sister, who didn't have to be sacrificed, back to the village, and everyone is pissed. They kick Lillica out of the village. And you know what? She can come with me. She's really cool. And the craziest thing is, this woman right here, who knows almost nothing about technology, who has never left her planet, spends the rest of the game dictating what we do. I'm not kidding you. Like, Jaster is brand new to this. He's not actually the Desert Claw. He doesn't know anything about anything. He's really strong, and that's really cool, but he doesn't really know what to do next. So Lillica just sometimes tells us what to do. She'll tell Zerard, the bounty hunter, the guy who's been around the universe, the galaxy, like doing all these crazy things. He just listens to her. We return to the ship, and then we get this cool little cutscene with Miss Target titties there. I'm not sure why she's wearing targets on her breasts. And this other dude, and they're talking about very cryptic things that we're not quite sure about yet, but they seem like bad guys. After all that's over, we see a cutscene of us entering the planet Zerard, which is a super technological planet. I mean, just look at the screen here. It's super technological compared to Jerica. I mean, millions of years of advancements, it seems like, man. That planet is living in the Dark Ages. My favorite thing about this trip to Zerard is we are here to renew our travel visa. That's it. The first mate, the cat, says, I know that we're pirates, but we have to keep a good travel visa. We have to keep it like, we can't get in trouble. We can't dock at planets. It's a very big area where we need to search around for everything we can find. There's tons of shops. There's items hidden around here. There's save points you want to go to activate, because the save points are a way to travel around each area. See, save points actually do 2 really helpful things. One, they help you transport yourself to any area in the game. Any save you've been to, you can teleport yourself to. And the saves also instantly heal your party to full and reduce or get rid of all your ailments and everything. So just simply stepping on the save point heals you, and then using it will teleport you anywhere. It's like a really cool fast travel system, and honestly, the loading times are low. This game is really cool. They just did a fantastic job with a lot of quality of life stuff that doesn't feel like it should be on this type of game, but it totally is, and it makes it so much fun. We head up to the counter to get our travel visa renewed, and we meet this woman. Her name is Mio, and she's like, I don't know. She's an interesting woman, and she does not help us at all. See, we try and renew our travel visa, but we can't. She won't let us. But then something very interesting happens. These guards come up and start talking to her. They have like her fan card, and he has a member number and everything because she's like a big deal. And it's so bizarre. I don't know why this is supposed to be interesting, but it's really weird. But then something actually interesting happened. There's a large explosion outside, and she thinks that we did the explosion. We didn't actually do the explosion. So the police pull up. And arrest us, man. And here's the bad part. The person who caused the explosion was supposed to be our friend bounty hunter, Zerard. Our friend, the bounty hunter. The guy who looks kind of evil with an eye patch on. He's supposed to be our friend. Well, obviously the characters don't know about this. We as the player do, though. So we are stuck in prison, and we've got to escape. Luckily for us, the chief of police is undercover in the prison system with a bunch of people he knows trying to expose the prison for what it really is. I guess. I'm not really sure why this stuff is happening on Zerard here, but it's crazy, and we just so happen to get caught up in it. So he helps us escape the prison cell as long as we help him. The prison is a very long trek where we move in between different cells, talking to different people, different guards. There's even some shops that we can get into and buy stuff from. So I spend some time grinding here. And let me tell you what, this party right here is the awesomest party that you'll have in this game. Maybe not. Maybe there are other parties that are really cool, but here is the ideal party for me. You see, Lillica has a really good buff, the War God's Cry, which will make everyone even stronger, including Jaster. Then she has a dance that will reduce enemies' defenses. Cool. Alright, so she makes me stronger and reduces their defenses. She has some other really helpful stuff as well, but those two things are very good. Then Simon here has two things as well. He also has an awesome buff to buff the party that will give you both attack and defense. That's a good one. Also, he has the strongest, at this point, at least for me, the strongest AoE attack. He shoots fucking rockets everywhere and just blows everyone up on the map. It's the move I use probably 1,000,000 times. I use this from this point on, the second I unlock it, all the way until the very end of the game. It's that strong. You can very quickly level up his rocket launcher ability and have it work for you for the rest of the game. I mean, it's the most important thing to use, honestly. Oh no, it's old Target Tits, and she's gonna show us an interesting thing here. There's an experiment they're working on, and it actually happens to be like this carcass of the crazy monster we fought on Rosa, which is a little telling where that monster may have come from. Because if they have it here on Zerard in this area, I mean, and then this woman who seems evil, definitely not helping our planet. This weird dude right here with the red eyes is the warden, and he's like tasked by the woman with the target boobies. She's having him do stuff. He's doing the experiments, although he's got his own little thing going. I think he's trying to bring back his wife, which is really sad. He misses his partner, and so he's struggling, and he's trying to use the experiments and stuff to bring her back, and it's not working. We actually need to fight him to get out of the prison, so that's exactly what we do. Now, something else interesting about combat, one of the more important things you'll use for abilities are your buffs to your attacks. Everybody has several buffs to their attacks, and that means that you can buff your sword or your gun, and they'll do different things. Not everyone has very varied ones. They're all pretty much just your attack now does wind damage, and you do like an extra 100 damage, which is, it's super helpful. Obviously, you need those buffs on at most times. Like, there's no reason not to have them on. But Jaster by far has the best one. Illusionary Sword fires a sword beam that makes your sword attack ranged. But here's the best part. If you are close enough with Illusionary Sword, the beam and the sword will hit him in one go, dealing double the damage. This completely ruins the game because it's just a regular ability, but you're now dealing double damage for every hit. For pretty much every enemy and every boss. I kid you not, when I find this out, I start buffing Jaster, and this is how battles go for like the boss battles or mini boss battles or hunts that are big with big monsters. You buff Jaster with Illusionary Sword, then you buff him with Dragelium X, which is Simon's ability. Then you buff him with War God's Cry with Lillica, and then use her defense down, and you hit the boss 7 times, and they're dead. It's just a ridiculous ritual of buff and debuff, and then just blast the shit out of them. Well, the warden failed stopping us from leaving the prison, and this woman is now figuring out what he's doing with the experiments, and she fires him. We do then get to see Zerard fucking doing little betrayal stuff over here, just sneaking around betraying everyone. We get the most over-dramatic stuff here, and this happens several times. This woman and this child approach us, and they look at their color palette. Clearly a sad tale on their end. Look at them. They don't look anything like anyone else. They look like all their colors are muted. They hand us a picture and they say, "Do you know where my husband is?" And the little girl's like, "My daddy's been missing." And they're looking, and the picture is of a small, squat dude. And just so happen to have Simon in my party, and when we see the picture, he turns and walks away. I'm like, okay, I mean, I don't know what else to say about this, but this is fucking Simon, dude. That's his wife and child. What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing over here, man? Why aren't you talking to them? Look at them. They literally are down on their luck, and you're with us traipsing around the galaxy? Fuck you, dude. Now, we don't know exactly why this is going on, but it is immediately clear. Look at her. Look, his daughter knows. She's like, that little squat dude. But it is a little weird. You see the picture of this guy, and he looks like a normal human. He's just real squat. Everyone in the stream and me also thought like he might be a creature or something cool. But no, he's just a fat little dude. But I have to be clear. We see his wife and daughter everywhere. Like every fucking stop we make, they're just there. And every time we see them, somehow without fail, they are more overdramatic than the last time we saw them. And they're like, oh my God, my dad, like, I love him. And they say the sweetest, most ridiculous things and then just stand there in like sorrow, like weeping. And then we walk away. Like 10 times, dude. It's so ridiculous. Not long after this, of escaping jail and just being fine about it, I mean, we killed the warden, I guess. We see a crazy situation going on where a guy named Jupis Tukey. By the way, we constantly called him Jupis Dookie, and it was just a joke the entire time I played this game. I hate Jupis Tukey. He's a little fuck, but he's a hacker who's taken over, I don't know, this place, and it's actually a really important place to have, and he's like going crazy. So Lillica, out of all the people here, Lillica walks up, demands to know what's going on. When this guy, the police officer, tells us what's going on, she says, this is Desert Claw, he wants to do this, and she says he will happily accept, we're gonna go do it. I then spend several hours traipsing around this factory, just kind of searching around for Jupis Tukey. little Jupis Dookie. Fighting through all these robots and all these things he's sending at us. Although, this is where it sucks. By this point, Simon has left the party. You can see I have Steve here, and that's because Simon felt so bad about his family, he's left and refuses to go back to. And I don't know why they're doing it, but so you can't use Simon, so I have to use Steve, and I get to keep Lillica. I have to level up Steve's revelation chart because I only leveled up the other two. I was kind of focusing. Really, you need in this game to focus on everyone, because at some point you will be using everyone. A common theme in this game is when you go to a dungeon, you just go through the dungeon. There are doors to open and places to go, tons of random encounters, items to find, and a lot of the times you need to search around for an item to open a door or a button to unlock a door. Whatever it is, you need to walk around until you find the thing the game wants you to find to open up the next way to go. While this isn't the worst design for dungeons, it's not the best. It's right down the middle. It's not anything that I'd write home about. It's not anything that I'd condemn, but it's fine. It gets the job done. A lot of this game is about the combat and the atmosphere being like this, futuristic but also fantasy setting, and learning about these characters and the story they're going through. Not so much the design of the dungeons, which honestly, a lot of the areas in this factory are really detailed, as opposed to some of the other dungeons we'll go through that are very, one note. It's all browns and grays, and you'll go through this for like 2 hours. But this one is fairly varied. When we get to the very end of the dungeon, we fight Jupis Tukey and his very big robot with a big J on it. Like, he wants everyone to know that he is Jupis Tukey, man. So I take his ass down. He's really not too hard of a boss fight now that I've figured out, the secret of the game. It's all, look at it, the beginning of this fight is just ability, getting everyone set up with abilities and then going ham once I do. Here is Jupis Tukey, this little blue dude, and he tells us about how his co-worker, sabotaged him. He doesn't really know exactly what happened here, but we then meet Dr. Piccaccio, who is actually the guy who built Steve, and they know each other, which is kind of cool. He actually talks to Steve and says, hey, can you do me a favor? Would you mind telling me about all the things that you guys do? I want to know about your travels and your journey, and I want to hear it from you because I think it would be interesting to hear. And Steve's like, oh, okay, I guess, sure. I mean, that makes sense, right? I guess, he made the robot. Maybe he's going out to scan stuff to figure things out. But then we get a new mechanic, the factory. Now, if anyone remembers my video about the game with too many mechanics, Dark Cloud 2, this game has a few mechanics as well, but not nearly as many, and they actually were kind of fun. I like this game's secondary mechanics a lot better, which the factory is kind of cool, and you don't need it at all. You don't need it at all. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's actually kind of confusing. You have this screen where there's a factory, and you take the parts and you put the parts together. The idea is that you have a blueprint of an item or a thing that you want to make. In this section here, we have the blueprint. We select it, and it kind of gives us what we need to do. We need specific items, and then we need to put those specific items through a refinement process. There are different refiners, like washers and grinders, and each item type needs a different machine to refine it to make the item. Once you get all that down, once you figure out what items you need, like this needs a space compressor and a Mobius battery, once you get those items, figure out where they start in the assembly line of the factory, set the correct refinement machine up so that it will refine that material. What you need to do is you need to make sure that the item actually gets to the different spots in the factory at the right times. See, when you put these items down, they slowly travel through your factory setup, and they have a certain number of turns they take to go through everything. Everything needs to end up at the same point in time. And they'll count just basic numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, up. And as they count up, they need to reach the same parts at the same time or they won't work. The first thing we need to do is set out everything we need. And then, for some reason, we need to plug in outlets to everything. Everything needs to be powered. You only need to plug in a specific machine once. As you can see here, there's an open socket on a machine, but the other side has a socket that's taken up by a plug. That's great. On the sides of the factory are the plugs. You can grab them and drag them out as long as you need them. They can snake around, whatever you need them to do. They're very easy to use. You just got to figure out the pattern for them. It's kind of hard at first to understand, but once you get it, it's easy. You click and drop wherever you want it to, and as long as it's the square next to an outlet, it will plug in automatically. If you need it to curve, kind of like I have here, you need to hit X wherever you are, and then it will let you choose a new destination from where you are. So it'll anchor the plug wherever it is. So you drag it out into the middle of the floor, hit X to anchor it, and then you can then change direction at will. So that will help you snake these things around, and this is necessary. You have to plug everything in. That's when you need to calculate. Look at the time. Underneath the disassembler, it says time 4. That is how long the item will stay in the disassembler. Everything has different times associated, so you need to make sure everything goes through the correct length on the machine, on the assembler, to actually be made. They need to reach this assembling piece way at the back. Every time you try and start the machine and something is wrong, it will tell you that something is wrong. And once you run it for the first time and get it to actually move, you can see here the items slowly going through each of the sections. You can see the number, and you can see that one of them is going to reach the machine first. They are not in sync. And you can see it will say error. Not all items arrived at the same time. So, the one that got there quicker needs to not get there so quick, or the one that's not so quick needs to get there quicker. And you can do that by adding more pipe for it to go through and stretching it around. Whatever you need to do, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that they get to that machine at the end at the same time. This little mini game is really hard, honestly. Once you start doing it, it feels like you're never gonna figure it out, because every time I started a run, it would just say error, or no, it can't do it because you have the wrong material. I'm like, what do you mean I have the wrong material? What do you mean I don't have the right thing? What do you mean I just looked? There's tons to look through. Once you get it, it's not hard. Once you get it, you kind of understand, oh, I see what I need to do. Then the process becomes way simpler. You know what to look for, you know how to set it up, and there are rarely any mistakes. But you gotta want to be able to do it. The game does offer the ability for you to do this or not do it if you want. So don't do it if you don't want to do it, because it's not worth it if it's just not fun. After all of that, we go back to Mio hours and hours later, and she just says, all right, here's your visa. And that was it. It took seconds. And then that's it. After all the stuff we've done, we finally meet the captain, Dorgenark, who is Kasala's adopted dad. She is also adopted. Interesting. Anyway, this enormous man is the captain of the ship, and he decides what happens. Now, he is apparently very powerful. I think the post-game dungeon has you fighting a, younger version of him, but I don't actually do the post-game stuff. Once I hit the credits, I'm done, so I didn't get to fight him, but that's kind of a cool fight, it sounds like. So, he's a really cool dude, and he also realizes that we are not Desert Claw immediately, because I don't know, he's like the pirate leader of this thing, and he's known people for a long time. He knows right away. He's like, you're not Desert Claw. And everyone's like, wait, no, he is. He has the sword. And he goes, but that's not Desert Claw. He doesn't matter if he has a sword. That's not him. And they're like, he's like, don't you guys know he's like an older man now? He's been hunting for years. And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess this is like an 18-year-old dude. I don't know what they were thinking. He actually doesn't kick us off the ship, though. Everyone vouches for Jaster. He's been doing stuff. He's been saving people and helping people. So the captain actually does like him. And he does say in secret to Zegram, he says, the only time I've ever felt this way when looking at someone was when I looked at Desert Claw. And I'm looking at this kid, and there's something about him. Something is weird about him. And Zegram does agree that something is weird about Jaster. No one knows anything about Jaster. Obviously, he's an orphan, but they all seem to think he's interesting. So the captain allows us to stay and tells us we need to go to the planet Vidane. On that planet, they just unearthed some great ancient tablet. The whole idea that Captain Dorgenark is working on right now is that he wants to travel to the planet Eden, a very special planet hidden away for some weird reason no one's sure about. And the only way to find it is through these special tablets. He is obsessed with trying to find it. So that's actually what we're doing. Like I said, no one knows who Jaster is or what's going on. We are just going with Captain Dorgenark for right now and his quest to find a planet that contains what he believes to be a bunch of riches. We head down to Vidane, and it's full of mobsters, gangsters. And it's really interesting. They have Tommy guns and everything too. I mean, I suppose futuristic and fantasy settings. It's just got a little bit of everything. It's just got a little bit of everything. And as the tummy showing gang walks around this place, Sal and I and Lillica, we all got our tummy showing, we go through this weird area with mobsters. Here's Simon's family again. I told you, dude, they're getting knocked down by the mobsters. They look malnourished and pasty and oh my god, it's just and we stand like 30 feet from them as this is happening. Jaster just watches as they get pushed over, doesn't offer to help, we have so much fucking money. Can we give these guys some money? And next we meet purple-haired elf and Miss Big Boobies. And Mr. Long Nose, who is... All these people are important. And then we meet a big old dog. Actually, the big dog is the most important one. The guy with the long nose is an explorer who's just exploring things. The guy with purple hair is running things here. He's excavating these tablets and trying to find stuff. He was actually friends with the bartender, this woman, and the dog, whose name is Digo, who's actually going to be a party member soon. But all these people we meet here have something to do with what was going on. The woman, the bartender, is friends with the dog Digo and this purple-haired guy, and they're not friends anymore, of course, because the purple-haired guy is under the employ of the bad guys searching for this tablet. They're actually the ones trying to get the tablet before Captain Dorgenark is. The dog he's just kind of let himself go. He doesn't know what to do. He's not sure what to do with his life, although until he finds us and finds out that his friend is being manipulated, he then comes with us to help get this great tablet and stop his friend, who he's not being very cool. As you can see, he's talking terribly to these people. He's being really rude to everyone. It's just kind of shit. Digo is a cool party member, although I just don't use him very much. He's big, he's strong, he's got some interesting abilities, but I really only use him at the very end of the game when you're forced to use him. So I don't know how good of a party member he really is, but that doesn't matter because we have to roll around here beating the shit out of these guys. I do a lot of grinding and item finding down here, going back and forth between Zerard now that I have the ability to use the ship to go back and forth, and I buy myself a lot of new items, get through the Revelation flowchart a little more, and honestly outfit my dudes with just more helpful stuff, even though Jaster's pretty much the main character. I do have to use Kasala and Digo here. I can't use Lillica or Simon, who are my main party members. And honestly, it's not too bad. At this point, I've gotten enough upgrades for Jaster to be able to handle things mostly himself. And as I upgrade the flowcharts of Kasala and Digo to just kind of like flesh things out, because it's helpful if you do, then I'm able to use them to buff Jaster even more and make him a powerhouse. Although it doesn't matter when I have to do a solo fight with Digo and his friend there. They walk around fighting. He is very strong, and like I said, I didn't really level Digo up very well. So a lot of this fight turns into me, like, being really careful, picking up the barrels, tossing them at him, smacking him with everything I had, using a bunch of items because I don't like when they make you do this. I want to use my full party, man. It takes me almost 10 minutes to fight him because I just don't have the damage. But the worst thing that happens could happen. They get away with the tablet because his friend, the purple-haired guy, Gale, fucks us over, man. But he does at the very end try to say he's gonna turn good and like help a little bit. You know, I don't know. I think he's gone too far off the deep end. He can't really help it now. He can't like come back to his friends the way he did. He's been too terrible and he went too deep. Well, damn, the bartender's bar got burned down. She's leaving to go figure things out, and Digo and her obviously have a little bit of a, you know, relationship of some sort, but they're adults and they're not handling it well. Come on, guys, talk about your fucking feelings for once. Our friend Gale does try to make amends by using his cool gun skills to kill the mob boss in the area who he's also working for, who's working for the bad guys as well. And he kills everyone, but in the end also succumbs to his injuries that they give him. So it's a cool gesture. Again, it's really neat. It's a cute little cutscene where he like just runs at Tommy gun bullets with a smile on his face. And this almost looks like V for Vendetta for just a second, but it's not. He takes them all out and then dies himself. Oddly enough, we get back to the ship to figure out what to do next now that they have the tablet, and Kasala goes out on the deck and starts to like disappear. And Lillica comes up to Kasala and is like, whoa, what the fuck is happening? And Kasala's like, I don't know, but I keep phasing out of reality for a moment, and there's nothing that can cure it. No one even knows what this is. Okay, that sucks, Kasala, sorry. Oh, damn, that's a bad guy if I ever done saw one. And he's the one with the lady with the target boobies. They're going around doing some shit. He's trying to convince this guy, the guy who's like leading Zerard right now, to buy a bunch of like war machines and stuff, which is a mistake. This is the guy that helped us out of jail. He's the chief of police, and he knows that guy's bad, but he can't for some reason convince the leader of Zerard to do anything. The leader just wants money and is not caring about anything. I don't actually know why he's doing this, but he's just like, okay, sure, yeah, man, that's fine. And then they manipulate everyone, obviously using their war machines that they've specially designed just for them. We follow the transport ship that has the tablet all the way back to Rosa, where they're taking it to these ruins. And no one's really sure why, but they have a connection between the ruins and the Great Tablets. So let's go get them. The captain's like, fuck it, we're going. Before we get off the ship, we get this cool little scene where Steve comes to talk to Dr. Boccaccio and then shuts down and a image of a boy shows up. And the doctor starts talking to him, and his name is Mark. And we get what I believe is a really cool side story. Honestly, this is a really good one. Here's what's going on. Dr. Boccaccio didn't just ask Steve to come tell him about his journeys for fun. What happened is he illegally implanted his son's data into Steve to experience life because his son died when he was young. He didn't get to experience life. The doctor, in all honesty, obviously this is very selfish because he has a conscience, I guess. He's data, but it's working. He's inside of Steve and able to experience this stuff. But just like his son, he's not here anymore. It's just a ghost of what it is. So we get to come back every so often, have Steve bring back the spirit of Mark or the data of Mark so Dr. Boccaccio can hear about all the cool stuff his son is getting up to. And it's really interesting. We get this very many times. We will see little things where Mark comes to tell the doctor about the stuff that's happening. And the doctor like wants him to enjoy life. And so eventually he relents and never tells Mark to not go do something. He says, if all of the people you're with right now, Jaster, Lillica, Kasala, Jupis, Dookie, they're all his friends. Even the captain, because, Steve is the robot. So he said they're all his friends and he wants to help. He desperately wants to help because he believes in what they're doing. As the story unfolds more shortly, you'll see why, but he wants to go with them and help them because he sees them all as good people. And this, like I said, this happens a bunch. We go and talk with him a bunch about this. We're back to our original planet Rosa, where we go through the desert looking for that transport ship with the goddamn tablets. Something I haven't mentioned yet are the challenges that will sometimes randomly appear during a random battle. You'll get a little challenge to pop up on the screen that will give you an objective. Finish in 36 seconds with Steve alone. That means you must put the other two party members into a no attack mode and then use only Steve to deal all the damage in the battle. And when you win, you will get a Hunter coin. Now, there are a bunch of different kinds of objectives, like finish alone with certain people, just finish in a short amount of time, don't use abilities, don't use items, only attack. There's a bunch of different ones, and when you complete it, you get a Hunter coin. Hunter coins are how you actually level up your Hunter license. Going through the Hunter leaderboard gets you more Hunter coins, doing these challenges, fighting the Hunter, the hunts that you can get from from this woman at the tower where Mio is. You can get hunts that will give you Hunter coins. You use those coins to level up your license. So you can do them, you don't have to. All they give you are Hunter coins, so if you're not interested, don't worry about it. As I make my way through the desert, I find myself back in the factory working on that for a while, unlocking some more items, things that I can use, and then I also find that someone comes in the chat and tells me, hey, why don't you have this special key? Come to find out, some of the treasure chests around the world, because there's so many treasure chests, need a key to unlock. Now I knew this, but I didn't know where I'd be getting the key. Well, I've already missed one. The first key was supposed to be back in Jerica after I finished it. I could have gotten a key. Then I used that key to open treasure chests, and one of those treasure chests happens to be another key to open more treasure chests. But the thing is that the key was in a treasure chest in the bar. It burned down, so I can't go back there to get the key in the treasure chest. Now, luckily, the bar will be rebuilt and I can go back and get the key. But I really wish I would have gotten it earlier because these treasure chests contain a lot of really useful items. The desert is a tough little area with some enemies that you can only attack by jumping up in the air and smacking their heads. So it's a bit of a trek through because you can't just use the AoE abilities on them. But once we make it to the end, we see these two conspiring and getting ready to see if the Great Tablet will do anything. We then see this dude come up who's a doctor or a scientist or something like that. He's working on something. And they're also getting the tablets ready still. But they also have this other dude with them who is special for one reason or another. We don't actually see his face. Apparently his face isn't being done forming, so it's under this mask. He's super powerful and he has some special ability that they need. And they believe it's the only way for the Great Tablets to work. We don't know what that means, but he's the only thing that's going to be able to help them make the Great Tablet work. Of course, we jump in and try and defeat him. And if you can guess, Seed, it's his name, defeats us handedly. Actually, in the battle, I'm winning, which is super shitty because I'm doing such a fucking good job against this guy that it's like, nah, you can't win against him. The whole point of the story is for you to not win. But damn it, I do a good job. At the last second, Desert Claw comes out of fucking nowhere and just beats that dude's ass and gets us out of there, which is really cool of him. Thanks. We watch them put the Great Tablet down during the middle of the battle, and we see that 3 symbols come up. And those 3 symbols relate to 3 different ancient kings' ruins where we will get special keys to unlock whatever this Great Tablet is hiding. And the only way to do it is to go to these different ruins and find the keys. All of them are on the planets we've visited: Zerard, Jerica, and Vidane. Oh, and as a side note, just in case you wanted to know, Jupis Tukey is a party member. Jupis fucking Dookie, and his silly little dances he does and things he does for his abilities. He's such a weird ass character, but he just broke out of prison, snuck onto a ship and said, hey, I'm gonna come with you. And Captain Dorgenark was like, all right. What the fuck? Here's another one of those scenes where Mark is telling his dad about all the cool stuff he's been getting up to. You can do any of the 3 in order that you want to do. So I start at Vidane as I'm slowly getting more stuff. I decide to go to Vidane anyway because there's some stuff I can unlock, and I check the bar to see that it's rebuilt already and I can get the key so that I can start opening the chests. And as we get down into the mines where we think this ancient ruin for the the key is, this kid says he has this monster friend that he usually is down here fighting and trying to help the kid because the kids live in the sewers. There's like, a bunch of orphans living down in the sewers. But this monster will help them, and the kid says he can't find him, so can you help him find him? This area is kind of neat. We've got some technologically looking, pipes and things around, and then sometimes we'll get these fantasy looking like aqueducts with these weird waterfall things and little passageways underneath them. It's a weird marring of sci-fi and fantasy, and it honestly is really good. They do a good job, and it feels kind of cool. It's got this really special identity. And these aqueducts are honestly like a little puzzle, which is kind of cool. You can walk around and there's a ton of stuff to find in here, a ton of enemies to fight. The dungeons are pretty cool just in general. Like, they don't do a bad job. Like I said, it's not a bad job, it's not a great job. It's just interesting. It's a fun way to spend going through, doing the combat, and learning more about the characters in the story. We actually do find the monster the kid is talking about, and it's actually being attacked by this assault walker, so we've got to stop the assault walker to save the monster. After all of this, we see the monster's like injured and we try and help him, but what turns out to be a very weird little twist. See, the monster is actually the old king's friend, and the old king is all these ruins are for old kings. This old king had a friend who would help him, and when the king died, his friend couldn't handle it, turned into this beast, and just kind of kept living. But the king says, hey man, I'm sorry that I died, and I didn't get to tell you anything. And then he says, look, it's enough. Be done. I'm gone. You can be done. You don't have to be this beast. And then he does. He disappears. He just is gone. He was so upset and confused that he stayed here to try and do stuff, but never really had a resolution. And now he gets that resolution, and we get a key. After this, I take a little detour to a side planet where we're actually going to help these different fish creatures and mermaid type creatures doing whatever they're doing. And this is a little I don't like it. I don't really like this planet that much. I mean, the story is fine, but the dialogue and the characters are kind of lame a little bit, and it's weird how they're all anthropomorphic animals, like sea critters standing up, and they all just look weird, and they do weird things. They say weird things, and it's one of those classic race problems where each of the races are having problems with each other, but they still have to help. So you were also offering help, and you go with them, and you don't have none of these people go into your party or anything. You just help them. For the characters though, they realize that there is a Datron lab. The Datron lab is part of the bad guys organization. Anything Datron is their company name. And so we actually do want to go disable the lab ourselves because we don't like Datron, so why not? They're trying to rescue their mermaid friend, who is this very attractive woman who doesn't look like a mermaid at all. And she actually is bad kind of too. She takes Datron's payments, and she steals the fish people's treasure from their home. And it's whatever. She like feels bad afterwards. You beat the shit out of the dude in the robot suit and everything's fine. They forgive her. It's just a thing, this is just common to them. Races don't like each other apparently. And so everyone just fights and does weird shit, like betrays each other in weird ways. And, also this woman's only a mermaid through her ears, it looks like. She's still got regular woman parts. Before I head out to find my second key, I decide to visit the hunter's registration desk where I can get the various hunts related to random monsters out in the world. One of them happens to be in space near the Rose Nebula, and if you walk over to this spot, you can use an item, a piece of meat, to lure in these big monsters that you have to hunt for points and stuff like that. So this is one of the hunts. It will randomly reveal in an area around the world. It will kind of tell you where it is, but not exactly. So then you must find that floating question mark, and you have to have the correct item to call the boss. Some of those items are really hard to get. Some of them are very common. The harder to get items are used for the more lucrative boss fights, the ones that give you more experience and hunter rank and actual items and money. You'll find a lot of these hunts are easy and some of them are hard, and you need a host of items to get to them. And the only way to know what item you need is to go read the description it gives you when you click on it. So when you, not when you get the hunt, but when you find where the hunt is. So you have to spend all this time to locate where the monster's gonna be. Then when you walk up to it, This one specifically said it's a carnivore and needs something to come to lure it here. I figured meat. We tried meat, it worked. Great. But some of them are really hard to figure out, and I don't always know until I get the item or someone tells me or I look it up online, because it's just a random item or a random really hard to get item. But once you get it and you use it, you get to do a cool fight, you get some hunter rank, and honestly, the experience from these dudes is totally worth it. It gets you so much experience, and the hunts give you cool cosmetic stuff. Honestly, you get to equip cosmetic stuff on your characters. My character has gone through several different outfits. You can change their outfits to make them look different. It's just kind of cool. I entered Jerica to look for the second set of ruins to find the second key. And honestly, it's pretty much the same as it was before. We do have some new enemies because this area I'm going into is new. And I get to see some hunts here. I've started picking up all the hunt contracts so that I can find them on my way around these areas. Because again, they give you so much experience and cool stuff, it's totally worth doing. We head through the ruins to the Leo King's crypt for this next key, and we find, oh no, that dude that kind of talks to us sometimes with a long ass nose, poking me in the face when he's talking to me. He's a stone. What do we do? Well, there's this crazy lady here who's protecting this child. There's like a baby in a fucking crib in here, and she's protecting him, and we have to kill her so that we can get to him. Anyway, Seed comes up and sees that it's just a baby in a crib and says, I don't understand. And then says, I guess the key piece wasn't here at all, and then leaves. And then suddenly, after Seed leaves, the baby literally manifests the fucking key in its hand and just hands it to us. We're like, hey, is that the key? Okay, cool, thanks, kid. The last key I must get is in Zerard, past this crazy barrier that's in the way, but Steve can only unlock it if he goes into overdrive. He can actually hack the wall, and it's possible, but he's afraid because Dr. Picacho said not to use it. So he goes to talk to Dr. Picacho to see if there's any way he can. And when he goes to talk to him, Mark takes over and convinces his dad to let Steve go into overdrive mode to do this. Even though there's a small chance Mark could be gone. Steve could die for some reason or get blown up, and Mark would be gone. Dr. Picacho relents and agrees, and they actually do it. He hacks open the barrier, and now you can overdrive to do this thing a few other times, I think, and to do other things. It's actually an ability he has. He makes himself super powerful in combat. This is a very long dungeon, as there are 2 whole towers you must traverse. One upward and the other one down, I think. I don't know. All I know is that you've got to go through 2 towers, and my god, does it take a lot longer than Lord of the Rings. It's a good thing I picked up all of those hunting quests because I can do them as I go. And again, I can't stress it enough. If you can buy them, because if you see them, do them, because if you do them, you get a lot of experience. The little mission that takes place in these 2 towers is that there's 2 different princes that were supposed to take the throne, and both of them argue about who should actually be doing it. And so once you get them together and make them understand, you do some boss fights, then they finally give in and say, hey, here's the symbol of our gratitude, and it happens to be the last key. We bring the key back aboard and give it to the captain, but too late, Zegrum finally decides to show his true self, and he pops up and takes the keys, and we have to fight him one-on-one up here on the top deck of the ship. We can see Zegrum here taking the keys back to the bad guys, and honestly, that was a stupid plan because they said, we're gonna resurrect your dead girlfriend, and Zegrum, I didn't know you were such a hopeless romantic, but god damn, that was stupid. You're a bounty hunter, you're smart, and you played right in their hands. Of course they're not actually reviving her, man. At the last minute, we step in to help Zegrum so that he doesn't die to Seed, which really has us going around and putting all the keys in while everyone else fights. So as long as you can just get Jaster over to these little pedestals, you put all the keys in, you get a cutscene. Seed takes off his mask, and for some weird reason, he has the same tattoo we have on our face on his face. The game is calling them birthmarks, so they're not tattoos, but apparently it's a birthmark. And look at this. We put the keys in and it unlocks this huge puzzle above the whole area. And the only person who can do it is Seed, for some reason. Why though? See, they talk about manufacturing him. He is not a real person, at least not in the traditional way. He wasn't born, they made him. And so he can do all this for some reason. We're not still exactly sure why, but with him having the same tattoo as us, it's kind of, telling. Well, Seed is now useless to the bad guys because his whole reason for being built was to manipulate this puzzle into working. Well, he couldn't get it to work, so we have to fight some crazy version of him that they made, I think, to just fight us in case something bad happened. They planned for everything. A bit of the way through the fight though, we turn red and start acting really strange, and now we're fighting him by ourselves, doing quite a bit more damage than we could do before. The bad guys try getting away from us, and as they do, they see Jaster, who is now glowing a red color instead of Seed glowing a blue color. We glow a red color and start to manipulate the puzzle, and we are successful. Finally, after hours and hours, we start to get a little bit more on who Jaster is, and apparently he is some kind of descendant of the Star King from like 50,000 years ago, which just so happens to make him the Chosen One. I mean, he's the only one who could have opened this, literally the only one. Even the manufactured dude couldn't open it. Only we could. So it's a good thing we were part of this stuff. Like, right? Like, if we weren't a part of this, no one would be going anywhere. We head down into the big dungeon that opens up underneath. Before we do, I spend a lot of time doing some more hunts and doing a little bit more leveling up. But in the end, I come back here to talk with this big robot who is trying to communicate with us. However, he can't. He's missing something and he attacks instead. The dungeon turns into us trying to get the item that will make this dude work. When we do, we place it inside of him and he begins to talk to us normally. Turns out that he already knows Kisala. She is actually the princess of the planet of Eden. Oh, no way, the other orphan also turns out to be someone special? I could never have guessed that twist. So anyway, we find out she is part of Eden, and we still need to go to Eden. He's urging us to go there, although it is seemingly somewhat dangerous, and nothing is going to be guaranteed. We probably have a hard road ahead of us, and the robot says, you gotta go. So Kisala doesn't change who she is. In fact, we don't tell anyone that she's a princess. She doesn't want to change anyone's attitude towards her. She just wants to be herself, which makes sense. And Jaster actually kind of does too. I don't think either of them are very comfortable with the fact they've suddenly turned into chosen ones. But we are then convinced that Eden is our next stop, and this will also help Jaster understand who he is. Sadly though, those bad guys stick around to see what happens, but they couldn't get away quick enough. So we try to stop them. However, the bad guys send down a weapon that ends up killing our adopted dad, Raul, which really sucks. He was a cool guy. He was just a priest who actually helped out. He cared about people. And so now he's dead, and Jaster's pretty upset. Lillica tries her best to console him, and Kisala also is like, hey, my parents are missing. I'm an orphan too, man. Like, don't forget. Probably everyone I know is dead too. The captain takes the key that we got from the dungeon and tries to use it to open the way to Eden. However, we eventually find out it doesn't work. There must be something out there that we're missing. And the thing we're missing is that Desert Claw has tampered with the gate to the ruin. How does he fucking know how that even works? Dude just comes up and tampers with it? We're like the only star god around here, right? Well, he says the path only works if you do what he says. And he says you can't go to Eden just yet. There's still something you need to figure out. Now we're really getting into who Jaster is. The next scene is actually heartbreaking. So Dr. Picacho gets caught having put Mark into Steve. This is actually something that is illegal. You cannot duplicate memories. So they're going to take him in. Mark contacts Steve, who doesn't know what's going on. Can you imagine? Steve is actually conscious and understands what's happening, but he didn't know every time he went to talk to him that Mark was taking over and they were talking to each other. Steve just loses all memory of that stuff. So when Mark comes out and says, hey, Steve, I'm inside of you and my dad has been talking to me, Steve's like, what? So just out of nowhere, Steve has to accept this and figure out what to do. Dr. Picacho is about to be taken to prison for life for doing something like this. And Mark is begging him to help. The only thing they can do is for Steve to erase all existence of Mark. This is to make it so that there's no evidence that this actually happened. Right now, the only thing they can do is show the small amount of evidence they have that he's done it. They need to take him to prison and search through his computers and through all of his logs to see what happened. But it's enough to work with. But if Steve erases Mark, there's nothing to look at, so they wouldn't be able to keep him in jail very long. There'd just be no evidence. So after some real heartfelt begging, Mark finally convinces Steve to erase him. Of course, Dr. Picacho is very upset. Steve just kind of is like, oh, that's it. This is all over. I can't believe this is what was going on. And I mean, the rest of the game is Dr. Picacho trying to come to terms with the fact that, his son has already been dead, and he's now gone completely. There's no trace of him ever. And Steve is now also trying to come to terms with what just happened, because he had no clue this is what was going on. But somehow he understands and tells Dr. Boccaccio he will continue to come back and talk to him about their travels as if Mark was still with him. So that's a really good story. Deep into the desert now, trying to find out what Desert Claw wanted us to figure out. We meet a fucking pair of people I did not think we'd meet out here in the damn desert during a sandstorm. This makes no sense, but it's ridiculous. Look at this. It's fucking Simon's family. Hey, dumbass, get out and help them. Oh, also, I have to mention just because I saw this, but there's a move that you can share with people, and Kasala and Jaster share a Fated Passion moment where they're like using their love to attack people, I guess. I don't know, but gross. As we travel through the desert, we get these kind of weird little scenes with a few people where we have choices to make. We need to make the correct choices, I think. The moral choices, right? You need to make the good ones to help people, and I believe that's how you're able to get to this very special little town. We enter this sudden oasis in the middle of the desert, where there's a little village, and it does not look anything like where we just were, which is very bizarre. And honestly, how the fuck is this here? We ask around this little village and we find this woman named Joanna who has a mark on her face like mine. Turns out that's my mom, and she's not ready to talk to me yet until she helps me awaken my true power. Just immediately. There's nothing. It's just, sorry, you gotta awaken it now. When we win in the fight against her, she finally explains that she is a descendant of the Star King. He was a real being that she descended from, and she has a mysterious power where she decided to live in this village. And when she did, a long time ago, over 10,000 years ago, there was a disease that slowly crept through the village, and she loved everyone in the village so much she couldn't bear to see them be hurt. So she decided to help them by putting them in this kind of time stasis where they'd live on forever and ever and ever, never succumbing to the disease. But she also erased her own memory from all of them. But they couldn't quite forget her, so they remember someone fondly helping them, and they live forever in this little time bubble. So we came here just to see the spirit of my mom, who explained at least that, and then she just busts out of there, man. She's gone. After our mom leaves and the village disappears, we come back to the desert where Desert Claw is just waiting there for us. How the fuck did he know where that village was? Well, turns out, he's our dad. If you didn't know that, the game was practically giving it to you on a silver platter by this point. We had guessed a while ago that he was probably his dad. So he says one day he was wandering the desert and she found him outside of the village that was stuck in time. He went inside, they eventually had a baby, which was Jaster, and she did not want him to stay there. She wanted him to see the world and the universe beyond, because she knew there was more to life than just the village. But sadly, she had also contracted the same disease she put the villagers underneath this time bubble for. So when she left, she eventually succumbed to her disease and died. So he was tasked with helping Jaster awaken his power, but instead of doing that, he decided to leave us on the doorstep of Raoul and just watch us from afar, I guess. I don't know what he was doing. With that, Desert Claw reactivates the little thing for us to put our key in, and suddenly, Eden is revealed to us. A large planet suddenly appears in the sky in this very weird fashion. Well, everyone wants to go there and see what's going on, so let's go. As we enter what seems like this little wormhole, there's a bunch of crazy monsters in this red sky on planet Eden, and we start fighting. We just start blasting everything we can, blowing up all these crazy monsters, until we get close enough to this big castle where we're suddenly escorted by more of those robots we'd seen earlier. They escort us all the way over to the castle. The castle displays this huge rainbowy light, destroys a bunch of stuff, and welcomes us in. And it's Kasala's mom. That's right, she's the queen. She's the princess of Eden, and her mom is probably the queen. And she tells us a very interesting story. Okay, so here is the story, the rest of the story of the game. This place is called Mariglen, and long ago it was peaceful until a weird alien energy called Rune came from outer space and landed on the planet. Now, this planet was originally in our solar system, so this planet was part of it 10,000 years ago, or a little bit more, until this energy came here. It began changing people into beasts. It's the reason why there are beasts at all on any of the planets. Apparently there were none before, so those things have come from Rune. And the person controlling it, everyone calls Mother, who she is using it to do this to every planet she could find. So when it came here and Mariglen, Cassala's mom, had the power to stop it, she did. But it was the only way she could, was to do some Doctor Who shit and like take their planet and put it in a time cleft, is what they call it, which is in another dimension, so that Mother had nowhere to go. They've been stuck in this dimension for a long time, as they also knew that there was going to be a new heir to the Star King's power in 10,000 years. Because, of course, a prophecy. So they were right. So this woman sent the robot through the portal. I don't know how. I'm not really sure how they got back, but he took a bunch of keys and made all this crap on the other planets until the Star God's, child would eventually come through, find the way back here, and they'd know it was the Star God, because the Star God is the only person who can kill Rune. So that's essentially what happened, is they were waiting for Jaster to appear because he is the only way to actually kill Rune and Mother. So she says there's only one way. You guys have to band together and go fight her to get rid of her. Otherwise, we can't come back. We travel through the forest trying to find out where we need to go next. We're just trying to locate where Rune is. But on the way, we find Cassala's dad, who was changed into a very strong large beast by Rune. And we must now kill him to not only figure out where to go next, but also to release him. He doesn't want to be a beast anymore. But he does tell us something interesting. He said that the only way you're going to actually be able to deal damage or hurt Rune is by gathering Dragelium, which is in all good people's hearts. Ooh, cute. So all the main characters, even Jupis Dookie, has a good heart. So we must gather the Dragelium from our hearts, make it into an orb, and put it into a weapon we can shove right into Rune. To actually get the Dragelium, we must go to this very specific map where there are like 50 paths. Every single character in the game has this little fight where you do a fight and then you unlock their Dragelium, where they get this kind of resolution in their story. Digo was originally friends with Gale and the bartender here, and Gale went off the rails, and of course, they don't know anything about him after this. Like, after that whole thing, when he died, Digo doesn't know that. And so his resolution is them all being friends again, sitting down and talking, Gale explaining like what happened, why it happened, and then saying he had to go and leaving, with the bartender not leaving. So that whole idea was like, he was telling Digo he was dead and that everything's fine. And so Digo gets this little resolution, and he gets the Dragelium of friendship, because obviously this is all about him and his friend. Jaster's Dragelium is pretty much just him with his dreams of going into space. And actually he gets the Dragelium of dreams. Zegrum's Dragelium is sad, because earlier we had seen him talking about getting his girlfriend revived because she was the love of his life. It was the only person he loved, and she dies. So we get to see here that there's a monster coming down to attack someone, and she dives in the way to save them. She is successful in saving them, but she does not make it, and Zegrum comes out of the door coming to get her and sees the whole thing happen. His resolution is that she gets to explain to him how everything's all right. He needs to stop being a little baby and get over it. Nah, it's much nicer than that, because he gets the Dragelium of love. Okay, fucking finally. What the hell is going on with Simon here? Because I cannot take seeing his family anymore. Well, here's his fucking family. Turns out he worked at like one of the labs, and it blew up on him. Like one day it blew up and it disfigured him. So underneath all that stuff, he is disfigured, and he was so ashamed that he just never went back home. Fucking wait, what Dragelium is he gonna get? Somehow he gets the Dragelium of compassion, but his story to me doesn't have a good resolution. His family has been without him for a long time, struggling while he traipses around the fucking galaxy doing whatever he wants. So I don't really see the compassion. I know they're trying to give him the compassion, But this is terrible. Why the fuck would he do this? Of course they'd accept you. Literally, you've seen them running around being so sad that he's not there. For 1 second, he didn't think for 1 second that the company told them, hey, your husband was in an accident, he's been disfigured a bit, but he's, he's at the hospital. So they go see him and stuff. He thinks that they'll be afraid of him and they'll be upset with him and stuff. And that they don't know exactly what happened to him or something. I don't understand exactly, because you can't change how you feel about both of them. Well, it fucking seems like you didn't care enough about them. I don't know, man. So Lillica's whole story is that her sister, the one that was originally going to be sacrificed near the beginning of the game, is blind. And the reason she's blind is because when they were younger, Lillica and her went out doing stuff and she couldn't stop her sister from being kicked by the Star God. The Star God, that crazy monster, kicked her in the face or something and made her blind. And then I think it killed their mother. So she feels responsible. She's felt responsible for it this whole time. Lillica gets the Dragelium of Courage for having the courage to look back and, move past all of this, which this actually does make sense, right? She feels like she was partly responsible for it, which it's just not the case. Honestly, the tribe who refused to change and the fact that no one came to help with this big monster. I mean, she was young. There's no way she could have done anything, but she was a survivor. Her mom did not survive and her sister is blind, so I can understand her being upset. Steve has a cute one because obviously we know where it's going. It's Dr. Picacio before he puts Mark into Steve, and he's drunk, and Steve gets to see how terrible things were, and also he gets to see him now in the present. It's sad. He's so distraught by losing his son, he just couldn't handle it. So Steve gets, he didn't really need that much closure because we got a lot of it already, but his closure is seeing, that Dr. Picacio is making changes. Even though he's drinking, he's making some changes. He's understanding what's going on and he's trying to let go. Of course, Steve gets the Dragelium of Desire. He desires Dr. Picacio. We get to see Jupis Dookie's story, which is fucking stupid, man. He just learns about the coworker that actually was meaning to do good when he poured coffee all over the computer, because that's how it works. But he poured coffee all over the computer for a good reason, don't worry. And Jupis realizes that he was just too prideful, and he's gonna go hire this dude back once they've killed Rune and Mother. So his Dragelium is the Lion Sin of Pride. Nowhere near as cool as the one dude who has it, but so he gets pride. I guess, I don't know. Jupis just wasn't that important part of the story. With everyone's Dragelium together, we're able to forge it into one orb that goes into a sword, and we now have a super special cool sword. Well, we've hit the last boss of the game. If we go do this is the end. Or, well, it takes us to the post game, but the end of the game is a little strange. So I don't think we learned that much new about Rune and Mother. She's here to kill everyone, and we are the Star God, which, by the way, I want you to take a good close look at Jaster right now. Do you see the red aura that usually means he's a Star God here? No, you don't. And no, I don't know why. Why are you not the Star God right now? You are a god. Can you please get your fucking powers out? Now, by the way, he hasn't used his goddamn powers except for a couple little times. We could have already been here and won the last fight if he had just God-powered his way in here, just fucking flew in here. But no. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the last fight real quick, okay? The last fight sucks. This is the worst fight of the game because it is a series of fights, and I expected this. RPGs are all about series of end battles, right? The problem is they suck here. They fucking blow, because the first thing I want you to understand, there's 20 fucking fights, and there's no checkpoints or saves. If you die at the last part, you must redo the whole 50-60 minute long fight sequence and go through some of the cutscenes. You just don't have a choice. The idea is to begin by equipping this special sword to fight this first phase, which is really not hard. You hit her a couple times, she puts her head down, you hit her brain, and as you can see how much damage I'm doing, it's 2 cycles of her doing this, and she's dead here. She reveals herself to be a witch. Okay, that's fine, I don't care. She's a witch named Arzabella or something like that. Anyway, she then reveals herself to be, this crazy thing that's flying around over the top of us, but we are Star God, and we finally decide it's time to use our powers. So now that we're super strong, we switch our weapon out to our Desert Seeker that's been upgraded out the wazoo, and we attack her ass and beat her so quick. We do this, and the stupidest fucking thing happens. We opened up the portal to come to Eden, right? Well, guess who decides to bring in their ships to come see what's going on? The bad guys. The target booby woman and the gross ugly purple dude. They both come in here looking to take the power of Rune to make their war continue on. They just want to go killing people and selling things and doing stupid shit in the real world. So they come in here to get her, and, well, no wonder Rune is way stronger than them, so she sucks them in, literally sucks them into herself, and changes into a bunch of parts of the two bad guys and herself and the ship. So you literally have to fight a living ship. The problem is that everyone decides to split up. You know, everyone's favorite thing to do, split the fuck up. And that sucks because you now have to do a bunch of one-on-one fights. Every character has their own unique battle, and I think it's deserving to talk about each one, so it's a long video, but who gives a fuck? Here we go. This first fight is Digo. Now, you don't have to level everyone up because these are the last fights in the game. If you can put up with things taking a little longer, who gives a shit? Buff yourself up and then learn how to do damage. This one is jumping up and hitting the eye on this hand. If he hits you, he does a shit ton of damage, and it takes a long time, even with what I have and the buffs. It just takes a long time, dude. These fights are just long. This one is particularly annoying because the hitbox for the eye is in a weird place. It doesn't always register when you hit it. Sometimes you're right at the peak of your jump and you swing your sword and it still doesn't hit it. So, I mean, whatever. Regardless of this, he puts his fingers down into a fist, and you must hit the ring on the top of his hand by using some kind of projectile. And when you do, he'll open back up for you to actually do damage. Otherwise, you can't do the damage. So you fight him for like 10 minutes. Simon is the easiest out of pretty much everyone, I think, because I have his AoE skill all the way up to level 3, the highest I can get. He is super strong. He blows everything in the room up. You see, this fight is this little weird two-legged thing that's floating around here, and a bunch of other things shooting cannonballs from the side of the arena. But he blows all the guys up in an instant with the side of the arena. Then we use an ability to buff him up and use our flamethrower to just blast him in the face. And he's done quick. Next, we have Lillica, and Lillica has a really annoying one. Instead of just fighting the walking thing, which, by the way, those walking things will respawn if Lillica kills him. I found that out the hard way. Don't fight the walking thing. You need to fight this heart in the back of the room. The problem is you must do it with this thing spinning around you. And let me reiterate, if you kill him, another one shows up. So you must quickly buff Lillica up and then move in for the heart kill and just ignore the walker. It takes a second to realize the timing for things, but generally he will still hit you after every time you attack. Next is Mr. Dookie himself, where we have to buff up real quick and fight another hand. Digo and Jupis just weren't the best characters, and I feel like they got the same boss, which is super frustrating. Zegram gets a really interesting boss. The doctor that was working on doing all the experiments, the scientist was doing all the experiments, is now part of the ship, and you need to hit him on this certain plate on his side. He then punches the ground a bunch, and as he's punching the ground, that's when you buff. You buff right away because some of his buffs take away his whole action bar. So you do the buffs real quick. When he puts his arm all the way down, after you've buffed up, smack him in the head. You can get him in 2 cycles. It's real simple with Zegram because your Zegram's pretty strong. Kasala's fight sucks, man. She isn't like a big fighter, at least not how I've built her. She's not that strong. So this just takes forever. Buff her up, and then you must jump into the air and hit this thing's face. I don't know how else to do this, but every time I do that and she started to move, she'd let out an attack. As long as you blocked, you actually block a decent amount of the damage, and then you can just buff up and start smacking in the face. This fight takes so long. Look at how much damage I do. Look how much damage I do to her health bar. It's nothing, and her attack always comes out and knocks you down. So it's just a long-ass battle. The last fight is, of course, with the Star God himself, and an enormous sword he gets. So this is all new mechanic type stuff for the fight, which sucks. Now I'd like you to see how quickly this ends. It's over. I died. I must do all those fights over. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Like 30 to 40 minutes of fights, all to immediately die to something that not only knocks you backwards, but knocks you into the other electric balls around the area. And you take damage every frame, man. There's no invulnerability period where you get like flung back and take like almost all your health but live. Nope. It's just instant death. So that's what you have to deal with this boss, and this is why this boss blows. The actual way to deal with this fight is to do jumping attacks and to stand further back in the arena. For some reason, this thing cannot cast those lightning balls that instantly kill you if you are too far back. It just can't hit you. Everything else can, but most of the other things that the attacks that it uses do not instantly kill you. So just keep moving, stay back a little bit, and then do jumping attacks to hit her in the mouth, or whatever this thing is in the mouth. As you can see, even though I'm paying attention, you don't know when she's gonna use the electric balls. So it's just a toss-up. Is she gonna use the balls? Is she not gonna use the balls? Do I have time to attack? How close do I have to be? All of this stuff is kind of new right in this last fight, the most important fight, the anchor of the whole game. This is the last fight, by the way. This is the last battle. So if you lose all that stuff you have to do again, I died 4 times. 4 times before I actually had a moment to figure out how to do this fight. I decided to just take my time. And that's how the game ends. We kill Rune, and Captain Dorgenark comes around and picks everyone up to save them from the volcano that's erupting on top of us, apparently. I think this all took place in a volcano. So he comes to get us and saves all of our lives. Everyone then realizes that things are done. They save the galaxy. Eden reappears back into the galaxy outside of its time cleft, and everyone is safe. And Kasala needs to take over the throne because her mom is 10,000 years old and she's a young woman who needs to be the princess of this place. So, they need to start new relations. Everything needs to start over. The entire galaxy is now going to change, and everyone decides to leave. Now, this is where post-game would start. You can go back and talk to everyone and see everyone, but it's all kind of a happy, sad ending, right? A bittersweet. The galaxy gets saved, and everyone's happy, but then everyone leaves. Everyone was kind of getting to be friends. They all had actual, attachments to each other for one reason or another. Obviously, Kasala and Jaster have it together because they actually have a move that lets them practically kiss to kill everything. So it's sad, but there's a post-game where everyone gets together and does another bunch of dungeons, and there's a bunch of other cool stuff that can happen. And we continue to patrol the galaxy. I'm the Star God, but there's nothing else to do. Not at least now. If there is a Rogue Galaxy 2, I'm sure we could see them traveling to a whole new galaxy to stop some kind of remnant of Rune, or some other big bad thing is out there. And it could be new. Maybe we could go visit it, but we're never going to get a 2. Maybe one day. It's such a cool universe. I think it's worth it. So that's it. That is the end of Rogue Galaxy, a very long video, a very long game. Thank you so much for watching, but let's go ahead and quickly talk about the positives, because this game gets an A on my tier list. It does not get an S, though. There's a lot of positive things about the game. The story is pretty good, the dialogue is pretty good, there's some, silly, cringy type stuff, but in the end, it's really not too bad, and it's fun to read, it's fun to pay attention to. There's a lot of story there, and even though some of it's a little boring or stupid, you just skip past it and move on to the good stuff, which is most of the other stuff that happens. The combat's a lot of fun, and the abilities are cool. I like the Revelation flowchart where there's this big board where you're slowly putting items in to unlock new abilities. Sometimes you get them early. Sometimes you have to make a choice, right? Several characters need the same super rare item, and you have to pick the one character who gets it, unless you're willing to grind for hours on end to get another version of that item. So it's kind of neat. I like the combat, the weapon synthesis, putting stuff together to get new weapons, leveling up your main character's weapon to get it to be a super weapon and be super strong, and the game is just about him smashing everything to pieces with it. He is the Star God, but he never uses his power until the end of the game. Whatever. Anyway, it's fun. Even moving around is fun. It's just a pretty looking environment. You got jumps, you run around opening chests, there's a lot of stuff to do in the environment. Overall, it's a fun game. The problems are, for me, I did not like how in combat it all ended up boiling down to just buff Jaster and have Jaster deal the damage, because, I mean, it wasn't something someone told me to do. It ended up being the most obvious thing to do. Jaster is super powerful, Illusionary Sword is very strong, and everyone has buffs that can give Jaster enough damage to destroy everything. And the only difference is at the end of the game when you fought that boss battle, is that's when people really needed to have their own good stuff. But otherwise, Jaster was just the perfect catalyst for extra damage. He dealt so much in so little time, there was really no other choice. Obviously, you can play other characters, level them up, and I'm sure there are other things you could do that are even more powerful maybe, but it was a very clear and obvious path. And it did end up making the game feel samey halfway through. Halfway through, I was set. I had everything I needed, and I did every fight other than boss fights the same way. Simon AoEs everyone to death. Simon AoEs everyone to death. Oh, not everyone died? Real quick buff Jaster and just have them go crazy for a second. They'll die. Or just shoot them one time with your gun. They probably don't have enough HP left. I'd run from fights that weren't worth it, like the guys who you only could jump and hit in the head, and Simon couldn't hurt him with them with their AoE skills, so you had to jump at him. I just left those fights. There's no reason to fight them. But combat ended up boiling down to just too little of a strategy that, I mean, if there's nothing else you can do, like, that would deviate from that path. I mean, he has Illusionary Sword, everyone else has buffs. It's clear what they kind of were looking for, was Jaster to be the main character that you use, even though you can sub him out of battle. So, combat was just a little too simple in the end, I think. I wish it would have been more, you needed to use a little bit more ingenuity, be a little bit clever about a boss fight. But no, it ended up being just, can you dodge one attack? Because you could probably kill him in one combo with all the buffs. That's it. Dodge a few attacks to do the combo. All good. The end of the story felt a little rushed. I felt like everyone's things got resolved, and it didn't feel good. Simon's didn't feel good. I did not like that. Dego's was boring. Jupis' was boring. The other people's were good. They made sense. Zegrum's was interesting. Steve, we already kind of got an ending to, but we got a little bit more for it, I suppose. Jaster's made sense. I don't think that was necessary, though, but it's sure. Jaster had one that shows us a cutscene we kind of already saw and knew that he was dreaming of reaching the stars one day, so whatever. Those are fine, but it did feel like that was it. Once you finish this last boss and see this stuff, it's over. I don't think it's any surprise that the last boss fight is also something that I did not like, with no checkpoints and the fact that you don't get a lot of time to figure out what it is that's happening in that fight with Jaster that kills you instantly. It took 4 times for me to really figure out a strategy, and it just is too long. No one should have to go back and do all those fights again. Those other fights aren't hard. None of those fights were hard. The only thing that was hard was getting to the last one and being killed instantly. So it's just tedious. Each time I did it, I never died on anything but that fight, because it's not hard. They were just kind of annoying fights. And that's what kind of loses the S for me down to an A, is the combat was just a little too simple, and I do wish that the last boss fight was better. It was too big of a detriment. Like, if I had died once or twice and gone through and then gotten it, that'd be fine. But 5 times I had to go through each of those fights. It was so boring. I'm like, all right, dude, this could have ended 2 hours ago. But I'm fine with dying. No problem with that. Dying and losing 40 minutes, 50 minutes of progress to do that again and get back to that point and die again because you're still not sure what's going on. And I wasn't accepting, I didn't want anyone to help me at that point. I wanted to be the one to figure it out. I wanted to see how long it took me because it was so quick. So that was important. I wanted to make sure I hit it. Now, the game is still fantastic. Please do not get me wrong. But I do have those are my complaints. I wish that was a little better. And otherwise, this game is great. If you like RPGs, go play this game. It's totally worth playing, man. It's totally worth playing. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. This will be the end of the video before it gets any longer. Thank you to everyone who's watched the whole thing the whole way through. If you have, say the word butt poop in the comments, and I'll know you watched it all the way to this point. No one put butt poop in the comments. Thank you to everyone who was in the stream when I played this. This was a long-ass game. It took 40 some hours, 21 streams total to actually beat. And there's even a post game, which is cool. So thank you all for hanging out with me and watching me make some mistakes, especially at the end of the game. It was a good time. And thank you, of course, to all the people who've donated and become members. You're the reason that I'm able to play these games. So thank you so very much. Everyone, we'll be moving on to the next game soon here, which is, I think, Soul Reaver 2. See you soon. Later.